This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what If Kid Naruto became unofficial apprentice of Itachi. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Naruto gave an eye roll. These classes at the academy were really boring. If he hadn't discovered all of this information months or even years ago, things wouldn't have been so horrible. For some reason, Itachi Senpai had insisted that he keep attending class. He mentioned strengthening his will of fire, or something similar, but Naruto was sick of being bored to death by these pointless lessons every single day. Naruto! Exclaimed Iruka. Pay attention! Naruto let out a moan. Once more, Iruka. Sensei was shouting at him. His words, I'm sorry, Iruka. Sensei, over the past few months, he had come to realize that it was simply not worth the time to argue with the academy instructor. It only ever resulted in Naruto getting into trouble and more yelling. Iruka glared at Naruto, fairly certain that the blonde would not know the answer and that he would be able to make his point. Well, Naruto, since you couldn't be bothered to pay attention to my lesson, let's see if you can answer this. What are the three main varieties of jutsu we as ninja use? Iruka asked. Naruto let out a yawn. Taijutsu, the physical part, hand.to, hand combat, which can be supplemented by kenjutsu, the use of weapons, is the first. Genjutsu, which boils down to mind control and is an extremely precise chakra manipulation art, is the second. The third and final one is ninjutsu, the use of chakra to directly affect the physical world, he responded. Iruka gave the boy a raised eyebrow. Naruto, how did you know about kenjutsu? I didn't mention that in my lecture. Once more, Naruto rolled his eyes. Itachi. Senpai told me about it. He uses a sword, and he said using that is kenjutsu, he replied with a smile. Deeply sighing, he continued, look, Iruka. Sensei, I'm only here because Itachi Senpai insisted I keep coming to class. I'm not even sure why he bothered. I already know more than enough to graduate from the academy right now, I just need some training is all. No offense, but this whole thing is a bit of a waste of time. At that moment, Iruka had a brilliant idea. Oh, really now? Well, in that case, he said, pausing briefly before making his way to his desk. He picked up one of the papers from the desk and carried it back to Naruto's desk. Placing the paper on the desk of the blonde, he said, this is the graduation exam. Take it now, and if you pass, you can do whatever you want for the rest of your time in the classroom so long as you don't disrupt anyone else who is trying to learn. If you fail, don't worry about it, it won't count against you. Naruto smiled. He mused to himself, I like the sounds of that. After addressing the remaining students, Iruka walked back to the front of the room and said, since Naruto so succinctly defined the three ninja arts, I'm sure he can safely take that while we continue our discussion of them. He then resumed his lecture as though the previous interruption had never occurred. Naruto only needed a few minutes to realize how ill-prepared he was for this test. There were some extremely challenging math problems, a few that dealt with the intricate mechanics of chakra and ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu, and even a couple that dealt with the trajectory of shuriken. He knew the fundamentals of jutsu and chakra, and he knew how to answer the shuriken questions, but he was only able to respond to a few of the exam's questions. He inhaled deeply, started working on the questions he believed he had the best chance of answering, and then went on to the ones he was less certain of. By the time he finished the test, he was vaguely aware that he had moved on from the ninja arts to other things, but he wasn't really listening to Iruka Sensei's lecture. Naruto realized the entire class period was over when he looked up after answering the last question. Naruto turned to leave the classroom after giving the paper to Iruka Sensei. Before Naruto could get to the door, Iruka, who was seated behind his desk, spoke. Naruto, he murmured. Naruto halted. I won't tell anyone else how you did. I just hope you learned something from this. Naruto gave a nod. I did, Sensei, which was his response. He was deliberately not looking back when he asked, is there anything else? His eyes were watering with shame, and he didn't want Iruka to see. Iruka let out a sigh. His response was, not for now, no, just please pay attention in my class from now on. Naruto gave a nod. I will, he declared. Sorry, Sensei, but I have to go now, Itachi. Senpai wanted me to meet him at the training ground after class today. Iruka gave a small smile. He uttered, all right, Naruto. After nodding, Naruto hurried off. Have a good time. After the blonde left, Iruka thought, I'm glad he has someone to look after him, and he turned to start grading the exam he hadn't anticipated giving that day. Naruto let out a sigh. He was aware of how badly he had performed on that test. His grade wouldn't suffer because it wouldn't count against him, but failing an exam like that after being so certain he would pass was still extremely embarrassing. He noticed that everyone he passed was deliberately ignoring him as he made his way through the village's streets. When he looked at someone, they would always turn away, nose up, whenever he made eye contact. But he always got a fleeting glimpse of the cold expression in their eyes before they turned. Even though he was accustomed to this, it still hurt. Itachi, Senpai, at least, didn't give him that look. As it happens, neither did Iruka Sensei. Even though it wasn't much, it was still better than nothing. Naruto sighed as he proceeded, making every effort to ignore those around him, who pointedly ignored him in return. Naruto happened to see two young brothers playing in the street as he continued to make his way to the training area. The two were being boisterous, running around, and jumping at each other. Naruto reflected, that's just like Itachi and me. Naruto recalled his first encounter with Itachi Senpai as he strolled on. Thinking, yeah, that day, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was just leaving the Hokage's office when he came up to me. He told me he was Itachi and that he was going to look after me. I remember. It felt so good to know someone actually cared that I existed. I mattered to someone. It was the single best day of my life. While he was recalling this, Naruto's eyes full of tears. I always wondered before that whether I was important at all or not. And then, there he was, saying I mattered, I was worth looking at, worth seeing, worth spending time with. It was amazing. Naruto was so engrossed in his thoughts that he failed to pay attention to his surroundings. He was heading toward the training ground, where he was to meet Itachi Senpai, when he abruptly bumped into something solid in the woods. The impact was enough to knock him to the ground. He looked around, got up slowly, and brushed himself off. A voice said, "What's your problem, punk?" Naruto looked up and blinked. In front of him were three boys, including the one who had spoken. Like Naruto, he got up off the ground and dusted himself off. Naruto dragged himself slowly out of his reverie and shook his head. The boy repeated, I said, "What's your problem?" After giving the boy a fierce look, Naruto turned to face the fourth person in the clearing he had unintentionally entered. A young girl with white eyes and dark blue hair was on her hands and knees on the ground. For a brief moment, Naruto believed the girl was blind, but then he noticed that she was staring at him. She was being reprimanded by the two other boys who stood above her. Among other things, they were accusing her of being conceited and arrogant, but Naruto saw only kindness in her eyes. "You shouldn't bully people, you know," said Naruto, resolute. The boys gave him a scowl. One of them said, "You should mind your own business." "Everything in this village is my business," Naruto shot back, casting a scowl. "I'm going to be Hokage one day." After considering that for a while glancing at one another, the boys started laughing. Naruto attacked the boy nearest to him and started beating his face in while they were preoccupied. The other two leapt up and pulled him away from their friend a short while later. After a minute of Naruto's rather brutal beating, the boys abruptly turned and fled when they noticed someone approaching. "Lady Hinata!" exclaimed the newcomer. He approached the girl and grasped her hand. After giving Naruto a brief glare, he grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her away. Although he knew she couldn't help it, Naruto saw the girl trying to stay with him. He lay there for a few more minutes, then he pulled himself up, left the clearing, and started walking in the direction of the training ground. Naruto was unaware that Itachi had been observing the entire interaction. He turned and ran ahead of Naruto, finishing a full minute ahead of the blonde at the training ground where they were meeting. He was grinning. Itachi gave Naruto, whom he had grown to consider a close friend, a kind smile when he arrived. "Naruto!" he exclaimed. Naruto attempted, but was unable, to force a smile as he looked up at Itachi. "You're late, Naruto," Itachi remarked in a mocking tone. "I know, Itachi. Senpai, I'm sorry. I was on my way here when I came across a bunch of boys bullying some girl. I had to try to help her. I'm sorry I'm late, but I couldn't just leave her there like that," Naruto replied. Itachi laughed. "Yes, so I heard. Her name was Hinata Hyuga, by the way. News travels fast around here, you know," he replied. "It's actually for the best that that happened like that. I had been considering doing something for a while anyway, and your actions today solidified my decision. Naruto, I have been accepted into the Anbu, and I am going to take you on as my apprentice, effective today." Uncertain whether to believe his own ears, Naruto gazed up into Itachi's eyes. Since he could see no dishonesty in his friend's eyes, he gradually began to smile before letting out a loud whoop. "Yes," he exclaimed. The blonde would have continued, "Itachi. Senpai, this is amazing. Thank you so much," for a few more minutes, but Itachi raised a hand to signal silence. Naruto fell silent almost instantly. Long ago, he had discovered that if Itachi ever did that, He had better keep quiet or Itachi would likely cut their time together short. I can't officially take you as my apprentice until you graduate from the academy, but from this day forward, you will be my unofficial apprentice. As such, from this day forward, you will be an unofficial member of the Anbu forces, and you will therefore be privy to certain classified information. The village will be relying on you to keep any information you may garner during your time in the Anbu secret from everyone, even your fellow Leaf Shinobi, Itachi said with seriousness. Naruto jolted to consciousness. Retorting, I won't let you down, Itachi. Senpai. Itachi grinned. Itachi looked around the training ground where they were standing and said, I'm sure you won't, Naruto. They stood silently for about a minute before Itachi said, now, let's get you trained. This was the most intense training day Naruto had ever gone through. When Iruka's lectures ended the following day, Naruto sighed as he saw everyone departing the classroom. After everyone else had left, Naruto stayed in his seat, and Iruka came up to him holding the test he had taken the day before. This hadn't been the best day in Naruto's recent memory, to put it mildly, because of the physical exhaustion from the day before and the fear of this moment. Iruka walked up to his student and said, You okay, Naruto? To which Naruto replied, Yeah, I'm fine, Iruka. Sensei, Itachi. Senpai just trained me really hard yesterday, so I've been really tired all day. Naruto received the exam from Iruka. When Naruto saw his score, he winced. Really? 20? I knew I didn't do well, but I thought it would be better than that, Naruto commented after a minute had passed. Iruka laughed. I'm actually impressed you got any points at all, Naruto, he replied. Most students your age wouldn't have been able to answer a single question on there correctly. Still, like I said, that won't count against your grade or anything, don't worry. After a fleeting smile, Naruto said, Iruka. Sensei, can I ask your advice on something? Iruka nodded after raising an eyebrow at his pupil. Naruto then went on to explain to Iruka what had transpired the previous day involving Hinata, the bullies, and Itachi. Iruka patiently listened. The thing is, if it hadn't been for what happened with Hinata, I'm not sure Itachi would have done that. Naruto concluded his story by stating, I owe it all to her, in a way, and I want to thank her, but I'm really not sure how to approach her. Iruka laughed. Well, I will tell you this, Naruto. Hinata won't approach you. She's far too shy. She's a nice girl, but she simply isn't going to be the one to initiate contact with you. Or anyone, really. If you want to talk to her, just go up to her and talk to her. Just try not to overwhelm her, she's very sensitive, he continued. After giving everything some thought, Naruto questioned, how do you know all this about her, Iruka, sensei? Iruka laughed once more. She's in your class, Naruto, he responded appropriately. She is? Inquired Naruto. Iruka gave a nod. Wow, she must really be shy, I never even noticed her. Iruka gave his pupil a kind smile. Iruka laughed as he said, recalling the first time he had tried to call on the shy student in class. Yeah, I told you she's shy. Just be nice to her, and she'll respond in kind. But really, don't overwhelm the poor girl, she's likely to faint if you do that. Her face was flushed bright red from stuttering for a full minute before she gave up and sat down. Although Iruka was well aware of her intelligence based on her test scores, her shyness made it nearly impossible for her to respond to questions in front of the class. Naruto grinned. Thanks, Iruka. Sensei, I feel a lot better now. I better get going. I need to meet up with Itachi. Senpai again today. Iruka returned the smile. Have a good day, Naruto. Let me know when you want to try the exam again. I'm sure with Itachi's help you'll be ready for it in no time, he said gently. Naruto gave his teacher a smile. His words were, will do. Thanks again for everything, and he hurried out the door. As he watched the boy go, Iruka laughed. He's going to be just fine, believed the instructor. In an attempt to keep his defensive posture, Naruto leapt away from Itachi. He was sweating a lot and panting heavily. For some reason, the two had been training particularly hard today. Itachi took great pride in the fact that Naruto, who had been his unofficial apprentice for a year, had advanced significantly in his taijutsu and ninjutsu abilities. Naruto inquired, Are you all right, sensei? For the past 6 months or so, he had been referring to Itachi by that name. It was only natural for Naruto to refer to Itachi as sensei during their training, but the two were still best friends before all else. Not really, said Itachi. Don't worry, Naruto, I'll live, I'm just stressed out about something. Still breathing heavily, Naruto nodded. After a moment, he wiped his forehead and said, I can understand that. If you ever need someone to talk to, you know I'll listen. Itachi gave a nod. The two leapt back toward each other as Naruto nodded and said, I know. For now, come on, let's continue training. After an additional hour of intense training, Itachi declared the session to be over. That's enough for today, Naruto. I have to admit I'm impressed with you lately. Your skills have been growing incredibly fast. Naruto smiled. His words, thanks, sensei, you know, all I needed was someone who would actually train me. Itachi laughed. You know, Naruto, I think that's exactly true. Still, I'm glad it was me. Naruto gave a nod. Well, anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, yeah? Asked he. Itachi let out a sigh. I'm not sure, Naruto. We'll see what happens tonight and just go from there, okay? At that, Naruto arched an eyebrow, but Itachi didn't provide any additional information, so Naruto shrugged. All right. Keep in touch, regardless, okay? Itachi laughed. With a reply, I'll do what I can, kiddo. Naruto always smiled when Itachi called him that, even though he didn't say it very often. After that, the two left the training ground. Itachi was the first to walk Naruto home, and he didn't say much because he was too preoccupied with his plans for the evening. Following their farewells, Itachi left Naruto alone and headed for his clan's compound for the final time. Naruto headed to the training ground the following morning, where he and Itachi usually met, but Itachi never arrived. Naruto left after nearly an hour of waiting in order to avoid being late to the academy. The classroom was largely deserted when he got to the academy. Hinata and Sasuke, Itachi's younger brother, were the only people present. Although Naruto had never had a formal meeting with Sasuke, he knew who the boy was. Hey, Sasuke. I was supposed to meet your brother this morning, but he never showed. Do you know where he is? Naruto said sweetly as he walked up to Sasuke. Sasuke turned to face the blonde who had glared at him out of the blue. The mention of his brother heightened the glare. He looked away from Naruto and said, never bring up that traitor to me. What? Was Naruto's response. Itachi isn't a traitor, what do you mean? With a bitter tone, Sasuke replied, he isn't, huh? Itachi slaughtered every single member of my family last night, except for me. Thanks to that traitor, I'm all by myself. After gasping in shock at this realization, Naruto instantly remembered the Itachi he had known for years. Naruto reflected, there's no way he'd do that. Well, unless, he knew that Itachi would do that if he had a good reason, but he would need a very strong one. Saying, if he did that, he must have had a damn good reason. He turned back to Sasuke. Sasuke replied, I don't give a shit what you think, he was my brother, I knew him, you didn't, how could you? And he betrayed me, I will find him and kill him for what he's done. Naruto gave a snort. He turned and left Sasuke after saying, you're the biggest idiot I've ever had the misfortune of meeting if you can't see that there's more to this than meets the eye. He walked over to Hinata's seat and took a seat next to her to wait for their teacher to arrive. Hinata said, good morning, Naruto, in a low voice. Naruto had tried to be friends with Hinata ever since Iruka had introduced him to her, and it hadn't been that difficult. Over the past year, they had developed a close friendship. Naruto gave a wistful laugh, when he said, I don't know about all that, I just got told my sensei killed his whole family. Hinata gave a headshake. She said, I heard. That's so sad, with empathy. I'm sure there's more to it than that, though. I doubt Itachi would do that without good reason. I don't think anyone who would could have gained your trust. Once more, but with a little more sincerity, Naruto laughed. Returning the statement, that must be true, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who sees it that way. Hinata grinned. No one you trust as much as you do Itachi could be a traitor. It just doesn't make sense, she responded with a straight face. After that, the two settled into a friendly silence while they awaited their teacher's arrival. Naruto thought about what had happened with Itachi during the wait and the lectures and other events of the day. Naruto had already made up his mind by the end of his academy day. He would discover the real reason behind Itachi's actions. Naruto spent some time searching through his closet after getting home from the academy before he discovered what he needed. When the older boy was promoted to Anbu captain, Itachi gave him a long black cloak. With the exception of being specially made to fit Naruto's tiny frame, it was identical to an Anbu cloak. Naruto also put on what he believed to be his apprentice persona and wrapped it around himself. The typically boisterous, carefree child immediately transformed into the somber, silent, and lethal killer his sensei had been molding him into for the previous 12 months. A few moments later, a tiny black blur leapt from Naruto's balcony, but no one saw it. Even as he meticulously attached the mask Itachi had given him and his cloak to his face, Naruto was sprinting toward the Anbu headquarters as soon as he hit the ground. Naruto remembered that day and gave himself a fleeting smile. Rewind as he entered the clearing, Naruto was beaming. Today he was thrilled. He was eager to find out what Itachi had in store for him today, as he had promised him yesterday. Naruto couldn't resist going for a run when he noticed his friend and teacher standing in the center of the clearing where they typically trained. Naruto stopped before Itachi and smiled up at his friend while he caught his breath. "Senpai, I'm here," he exclaimed with gladness. Itachi grinned and laughed at the blonde boy he already thought would be his successor. His tone was level. "I see that, Naruto," he said. "And just what is it you are so excited about this morning?" Naruto gave Itachi a raised eyebrow. He was aware that the older boy was playing tricks on him. Itachi frequently pretended to be unaware of what was happening in order to gauge Naruto's response. Naruto chose to comply today since he was feeling upbeat. The blonde remarked, "Oh, I'm just happy to see you, that's all. Nothing else." Itachi laughed once more. "Careful who hears you say that, they might think you're hitting on me," Itachi warned. After a brief moment of surprise, Naruto realized what Itachi had truly said, and he started to gag right away. "That's just really creepy," Naruto said, pausing to regain control of his gag reflex. "No offense, senpai." A real rarity occurred at that moment. At this, Itachi threw back his head and let out a full-on belly laugh rather than chuckle or laugh softly. Naruto had known Itachi for more than 5 years at this point, and he had only witnessed that kind of laughter twice. Naruto rubbed a finger across his nose and smiled. Even if it was inadvertent and somewhat embarrassing, he enjoyed making his friend laugh. Upon calming down, Itachi grinned at his young companion and remarked, "You know, Naruto, I couldn't agree with you more. That is rather creepy, isn't it? And yet, you know there are people out there who would think that way." Naruto gave an eye roll. He said, "I know you're right about that, senpai," after a brief pause. "And to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm more disgusted or depressed by that little fact." Itachi grinned once more, his eyes glimmering. "I have to agree, Naruto. Anyhow, I have a surprise for you," he replied. Itachi took out a scroll and unfolded it between Naruto and himself as he was saying this. Itachi opened a blank white mask with 2 tiny eye slits and a black cloak from the scroll, flashing through a brief series of hand signals. While examining them, Naruto questioned, "But, senpai, aren't these Anbu things?" Itachi gave the boy a proud smile. In his own words, "Yes, Naruto, they are." Naruto questioned, "Then, why are you giving them to me?" He was attempting to contain his excitement, but if Itachi was expressing what Naruto believed him to be. Itachi returned his smile to the child and stated, "Yesterday, I was promoted to the rank of captain in the Anbu. As my apprentice, you are, henceforth and forever, an unofficial member of the Anbu. The only way you will no longer retain this unofficial rank is if you are officially inducted into the Anbu." After giving this some thought, Naruto glomped Itachi. "Thank you so much, senpai," he joyfully cried out. Itachi grinned broadly as he gave the little ball of energy a hug. This child truly made him proud. "What will I be called?" Naruto asked, stepping back. Itachi recalled telling Naruto about the codenames used by Anbu members, and he smiled for a moment. When Naruto appeared to be about to protest, he held up a hand for silence. "For right now, you won't have a codename," he said. "I said for right now. If you are ever inducted to the Anbu, you will be allowed to choose your own name, or if you do something special that earns you a reputation, you'll be given a name from that. For now, you won't have a name. Trust me, not having a name is more benefit than curse." Itachi laughed, then nodded, and Naruto paused to think about it before saying, "So, I can do whatever I want and don't have to worry too much about people knowing it was me. At least until I have a name." The blonde remarked, "I understand what you mean. That might be a pretty effective weapon." Itachi grinned with pride. "Yes, it can. I remember what it was like before I had my name. I was just a shadow. I remember a couple times people saw me and the mere sight of me and my blank mask was enough to send them into fits of terror since they had no idea what to expect from me." After giving this some thought, Naruto put the mask on his face and wrapped the cloak around himself. To his surprise, he could see just as well while wearing the mask as when he wasn't. His entire field of vision was somehow made possible by those eye slits. "Is there some kind of oath I have to take or something like that?" Naruto asked, putting that small bit of knowledge away. Itachi gave a headshake. "Not right now. You're just an unofficial Anbu, after all. All you have to do is swear you'll never tell anyone that you're an Anbu or tell anyone the name of any other Anbu member. If you break that vow, the punishment is death." Naruto gasped and replied, "I, Naruto Uzumaki, do hereby solemnly swear I will never reveal the identity of any member of the Anbu, including myself, to anyone outside of the Anbu." Itachi laughed. His words, "Well said, Naruto, I'm glad you noticed that loophole. And you're right, by the way. You can reveal your identity to any member of the Anbu you should so choose. You do not have to, but you can. And incidentally, as the leader of all the forces of the village, the Hokage is an honorary Anbu member, so you can reveal yourself to him if you so choose. And before you ask, no, he doesn't know who is inducted to the Anbu, so he doesn't know about this. If he doesn't know who is in the Anbu, how does he know who is getting his orders when he tells a member of Anbu what to do? Asked Naruto after giving that some thought. Itachi became more and more arrogant. The Hokage is familiar with members of Anbu by their code names. He knows the abilities of each Anbu member just as he knows the abilities of the regular shinobi forces. Sometimes he doesn't actually know who is being given his orders, but he knows what the shinobi he is commanding can do, which, if you really think about it, is far more important than knowing the shinobi's name. Naruto gave this some thought. He paused before continuing. I suppose that's true, and if the Hokage were ever taken hostage, he can't reveal the identity of someone if he doesn't know who it is, either. Itachi's smile at his apprentice was uncontrollable. He was so incredibly proud of the boy. The simple statement, "You're exactly right about that, Naruto," was his. He continued, and by the way, congratulations on being the newest member of the Anbu. After giving the older boy a smile, Naruto gave him another hug. Itachi returned the blonde's hug with a smile. End of flashback. Naruto recalled that day when he had reached the Anbu headquarters, where he and Itachi had been spending a lot of time during the previous few months. He knew exactly how this place was laid out, as well as the times and locations of the different guards' patrols. Despite his repeated claims that he had no idea why Naruto would ever need to do this, Itachi had insisted that he learn these things in case he ever had to sneak into the headquarters. Itachi's seemingly haphazard training techniques made Naruto think, "Thanks, sensei," to himself. As Naruto moved through the different corridors of the headquarters building, he was always just behind the different guards, out of their direct line of sight, or concealed in the shadows of the corners. He went unnoticed. The young boy had to walk for almost an hour to reach a particular door in the building's depths. He had never been permitted to pass this door before, and he knew in the back of his mind that he shouldn't be doing so right now, but he would stop at nothing to save his sensei. Without a compelling reason, he was certain Itachi would not have done the things he was being accused of doing. Keeping this in mind, Naruto pushed open the door and went into the ANBU's secret records room. A moment of helplessness overcame Naruto as he looked around at all the filing cabinets in the room. Naruto thought for a moment, "I'll never find it in this mess." Then, after that, Naruto collected his thoughts and said, "There must be something more to this." After giving it some thought, Naruto made a hand gesture in front of himself and tried everything to disrupt his chakra flow. He cried out, "Release!" It did indeed work. The room's enormous number of filing cabinets disappeared, leaving only a few dozen, each with a card with the drawer's name written on the front. Naruto laughed. "Thought so," he told himself before returning his focus to the current task. Finding the correct cabinet and drawer within it took Naruto a few minutes, but he eventually located one labeled, Itachi, with little difficulty. Naruto opened the drawer, took out a folder, and started looking through it. With a heavy sigh, Naruto took the final folder out of the drawer. At the moment, he was experiencing a great deal of overwhelm. Every folder he had perused had included information about a mission that Itachi had previously undertaken or one that was still in progress. Some of those missions had involved smuggling refugees into the Leaf Village, killing prominent political figures from other countries, or even completely destroying small towns. Itachi had finished all of them without considering himself. Itachi carried out his Hokage's orders. It was that easy. I never realized just how much Itachi must love this village, Naruto reflected to himself as he opened the final folder. His eyes gradually grew larger as he read, eventually filling over half of the young boy's face. His thoughts were, "Well, I guess now I do," as he took time to process what he had just read. Naruto exited the Anbu headquarters in the same manner that he had arrived, placing the folders back in Itachi's drawer. He needed to discuss what he had just read with the Hokage. Only a few minutes after leaving the Anbu file room, Naruto walked into the Hokage's office. For some reason, leaving the headquarters building had been much easier than entering. Naruto stood at attention in front of Hiruzen Sarutobi, still wearing his Anbu cloak and mask. Hiruzen's eyebrows went up at the sudden interruption. Just as he was about to end the day, a tiny Anbu with a blank mask showed up in his office. The Hokage could only watch the little figure and wait for the masked figure to speak to him. After all, he didn't know who this was. Naruto did just that after standing silently for a minute. "Lord Hokage, I'm sorry for the intrusion, but I needed to speak with you about a matter of utmost importance to me," he replied. As the Hokage put it, "Oh, and what is that? I refuse to say how I am aware of this information, but I know the true reason why the Uchiha clan was murdered last night," Naruto said solemnly after taking a deep breath. Hiruzen let out a gasp. He calmed down and said, "I see." The Anbu waited. After a moment, The Hokage said, "What do you want me to do or tell you, Anbu? I wish to know why their deaths were ordered. The information I possess is incomplete, and I wish to know the reasons for this," the shadowy figure replied. Hiruzen let out a sigh. Upon reflection, he remarked, "It'll be a relief, actually, to have someone other than me know the whole story." The figure sat down and gazed expectantly at the Hokage. The Hokage lit his pipe and took a puff, pausing to consider where to start. A minute later, he spoke. "About a year ago, Itachi approached me with suspicions that the Uchiha clan were planning a coup. He believed they intended to overthrow me and take over the village and run it as a military state. 6 months ago, Itachi infiltrated a secret meeting of the clan, where his suspicions were entirely confirmed." "But did they have to die? Couldn't you have talked to them, dissuaded them somehow?" Naruto asked after giving this some thought. Hiruzen sighed and said, "We tried. Both Itachi and I went to Fugaku Uchiha, the clan head, and did the best we could to talk him down from his crazy plans. We tried repeatedly for months to talk him down, but the man was adamant that his clan should be leading the village. He even made it apparent to the two of us that he planned to place Itachi's younger brother as Hokage. It was only after we both realized the sheer futility of dissuasion that the unfortunate event last night became necessary. It was with a heavy heart that I ordered Itachi to do that." Despite his anger, Naruto kept it to himself. He inhaled deeply before asking, "Why did it have to be Itachi?" with a false sense of composure. "Actually, Itachi wouldn't let me give the mission to anyone else," Hiruzen replied. This response startled Naruto into silence. That was the exact response he had anticipated. Hiruzen went on to say, "He said it was his family, so it was his responsibility to deal with it. I think he took his status as the son of the clan head very seriously." After giving this some thought, Naruto said simply, "Thank you for taking time to speak with me, Lord Hokage. I have much to consider after this." The boy then left the office through the same window he had entered just a few minutes earlier. After returning to his apartment, Naruto took off his cloak and Anbu mask, changed out of his academy attire, and put on his bedclothes and the goofy frog nightcap that Itachi had given him for his birthday 2 years prior. Itachi had merely replied, "Your father would want you to have it," and declined to elaborate when he asked why a frog. Naruto was strangely proud of the foolish thing, even though he had no idea what his friend and sensei had meant by that. Naruto was carefully analyzing the predicament his sensei had found himself in as he climbed into bed. The 8-year-old boy found the entire situation extremely upsetting. This was one of the first times he had truly seen how true it was that they were, in a very real sense, nothing more than living weapons to be used however their cage saw fit, even though he was well aware of that. Almost at the same time, Naruto had 2 thoughts right before bed that night. Firstly, I hope the Hokage never misuses me. Secondly, and much more concerningly, will I ever see Itachi again? Naruto was struggling to remain motionless. Even though it had only been 20 minutes, he had been bouncing in his seat for what seemed like hours. In order to leave the academy as quickly as possible, he was eager to finish the Genin test. He was fairly certain he knew all the different jutsu he would need for it because he and Hinata had been practicing them together for months. He was using shadow clones instead of regular clones, but he didn't think anyone would notice the difference. As she waited for her turn to take the test, Hinata was observing her longtime friend and crush, giggling mildly at his antics. Although she was aware of Naruto's constant energy, she had occasionally seen glimmers of something else. At times, Naruto would appear considerably more solemn, quiet, and controlled. She was a little uneasy about this, though she wasn't sure if it had anything to do with his training with Itachi. She still had a lot of affection, trust, and concern for Naruto, but it was just strange when he became that way. Hinata nearly missed her name being called because she was so preoccupied with Naruto's strange moments. Naruto yelled, "Good luck, Hinata," as she got up to head to the exam room, which was next door to their former classroom. As she walked away, she gave her friend a smile. Naruto was wildly waving at her. She gave a small laugh and left the room. Now that he was alone, Naruto sighed and switched to Anbu mode almost instantly. He had to maintain appearances for Hinata and his classmates. None of them were aware of his trips outside the village to continue his training over the past few years, although a few were aware that he had trained with Itachi a few years prior. Naruto recalled the start of this with nostalgia. Rewind about a month after Itachi had left the village, Naruto had been summoned in his Anbu form to the Hokage's office. "You called for me, Lord Hokage?" he inquired, unsure of the reason. "Yes, I did," Hiruzen said, taking a drag from his pipe. "I understand you have been Itachi's apprentice for a while now." Naruto nodded when the Hokage paused, seemingly seeking confirmation. He has recently sent me a letter detailing the training he has done with you and requesting that he be allowed to continue to train you until the time when you graduate from the academy. He says that he could bring you up to the level of a rookie Anbu by then. Naruto compelled himself to remain emotionless. Trying not to twitch anxiously, he said, "Have you replied yet, Lord Hokage?" Hiruzen gave a small smile. "I haven't actually responded yet. I wanted to ask you a favor, if I am to allow this," said the man. Unsure of how to respond, Naruto waited in silence. "If I allow you to continue to train with Itachi, I would like you to be his contact in the village and relay his intel reports directly to me." At this point, Naruto had to control his excitement. "I can manage that very well, Lord Hokage," he replied. "I thank you for your trust in me." Hiruzen let out a small sigh. "I don't care what anyone tells you, only give his reports to me. No eyes are to see them but mine. Understood?" Naruto gave a nod. "Good. You leave for your first meeting with Itachi in a week, dismissed." End of flashback. Naruto nearly missed his test time because he was so engrossed in his memory. As he entered the adjacent exam room, he glanced at Iruka and Mizuki seated behind a desk. Somehow, Naruto had always had an innate mistrust of Mizuki. The silver-haired teacher had always felt, for some reason, wrong to him, though he wasn't sure why. Iruka uttered, "All right, Naruto, if you can perform a clone jutsu, you pass." Naruto laughed and used the first two fingers of each hand to form a cross. He whispered, "Shadow clone jutsu," and 3 clones were formed. Iruka gave Naruto a headband after grinning and nodding. He exclaimed, "You pass, Naruto," with pride. "Be in the classroom tomorrow morning at the normal time to get your team and sensei assignments." Mizuki raised her voice after Naruto had gone. "Should we have let him pass using a different jutsu?" he inquired. Iruka nearly chuckled. "Mizuki, you do realize that was a Jonin level jutsu, do you not?" replied he. Iruka went on after Mizuki nodded, saying, "It would have been a pure farce to not let him pass when he's able to do that jutsu, and all we require is a far less advanced one." Naruto overheard this brief conversation. As he left the room, he thought to himself, "I knew there was something off about Mizuki," but he dismissed the idea because he reasoned that he wouldn't have to put up with the man any longer after this. When Hinata noticed Naruto leaving the academy building, she grinned. His blank face was on, as she had come to call it, but she could tell he was not upset, so she assumed he had passed. She wasn't particularly concerned about that, but she was aware that Mizuki Sensei had always disapproved of the boy for some reason, so she had a small fear that the silver-haired teacher would attempt to taint Naruto's test in some way. At the sight of Hinata, Naruto slipped out of his Anbu mode. "Hey, Hinata." He greeted her with a wave and a smile. As he walked toward her, Hinata's smile grew. She asked, "I guess you passed?" Naruto smiled broadly. He exclaimed, "Of course I passed. I'm way too awesome to fail at some academy exam." Hinata laughed. He winked and said, "Plus, with your help and encouragement, how could I ever fail at anything?" As they conversed, the two started to leave the academy grounds and stroll through the village, not really going anywhere but simply moving. After blushing, Hinata remarked, "I'm nothing special. I'm sure it had more to do with your training with Itachi than it did with me." At this, Naruto scoffed. His words, "You're the most special person I've ever known, Hinata," were delivered with seriousness. "With you by my side, I always feel like there's nothing I can't do, like I could take on the world if I had to." Hinata reddened even more. "No one's ever said anything like that to me before," she replied. Naruto chuckled. "Well, just get used to it," he advised. Hinata laughed. She said, "I think I can manage that," grinning a little. "Anyway, Naruto, you looked like something was bothering you when you came out. Did something happen?" Naruto laughed. "Only you can see through my mask," said the man. "Mizuki tried to keep me from graduating, and I'm really not sure why." After giving this some thought, Hinata shrugged. She said, "Oh, well, at least Iruka Sensei was there to make sure you got through anyway." After a brief pause, Naruto gave a nod. "I'm glad at least one of our sensei was on my side. Now I just have to hope my Jonin Sensei won't try to hold me back," said the man. Hinata chuckled. "I doubt any of the Jonin in the village would be that low down," she continued. Then she let out a sigh. "I just wish we could be on the same team." Naruto grinned pitifully. "I know, so do I, but I doubt that will happen," he replied. "I mean, I guess it could, but I kind of doubt it." Hinata returned the smile. After saying, "Yeah, I know," she realized they had somehow found themselves outside of Ichiraku Ramen. Her stomach rumbled a little as she inhaled the aroma of the ramen cooking inside. "I guess I'm hungry," she said, blushing. Naruto smiled broadly. He exclaimed with joy, "You know I'm always down for some ramen," and the two went into the tiny store. The restaurant's owner, Tucci, grinned as he watched his two favorite patrons walk in. He yelled, "Hey, you two, what can I get you today?" Naruto chose to carry on their earlier conversation after the two placed their orders and received their food. He uttered the words, "Well, Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji will almost certainly be a team," while snacking on noodles. Hinata gave a nod. "I'd imagine you and Sasuke will be on a team, and your sensei will probably be Kakashi. And I can almost guarantee Kurenai will ask for me, so yeah, not much of a chance of us being on the same team," she said in a somewhat sorrowful tone. A hand was placed on Hinata's shoulder by Naruto. Naruto said, "It's okay, we'll always be friends," grinning a little. Hinata put Naruto's little hand on hers. "Yeah, that's true," she replied. Her thoughts were somewhat dejected. If only we could be more, someday, she thought. Over the past few years, she had developed a serious crush on Naruto, but she didn't think she would ever have the courage to tell him about it, much less have a chance of dating him. Hinata's eyes flashed with sadness, and Naruto saw it. "I wish I knew why she always looks sad like that whenever I bring that up," he said. "No matter what," he said out loud, "I'll always be here for you, Hinata." Though she couldn't really complain, Hinata blushed and wished fervently that he meant that as much more than a friend. "I shouldn't be so down about it. I'm lucky to just be his friend," she said. She grinned and said, "Same here, Naruto. I'll always be here for you, too." Naruto encircled Hinata with an arm and gently squeezed her shoulders. After Hinata's intense blush, the two returned to their ramen. Naruto walked Hinata back to the Hyuga complex after he was done. When Naruto said, "Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Hinata," he smiled. Hinata nodded, grinning. After Naruto waved and Hinata waved back, Naruto vanished. Naruto was getting to his own house and getting into bed in a matter of seconds. He grumbled to himself, "Man," and slipped beneath the covers. His eyes closed and he fell asleep in a matter of seconds after he said, "It's such a pain maintaining my cover. I wish I could just be the Anbu I'm meant to be." The following morning, Naruto discovered Hinata at the academy. The two sat together, as they always did, and awaited Iruka Sensei to arrive and introduce them to their new Jonin Sensei. Both of them assumed they knew, but they could be mistaken. Shortly after everyone who had passed the exam had assembled, Iruka entered the room. "All right. I will now announce the teams," he responded. Given that they probably wouldn't be together, Naruto and Hinata smiled sorrowfully at one another. After starting to read the teams, Iruka arrived at Team 7 in a matter of minutes. He declared, "Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, and Sasuke Uchiha." The two were taken aback, but naturally neither of them voiced any complaints. Naruto was aware that he would never have a chance if he didn't speak up about this now. "Iruka Sensei," he exclaimed angrily. "Why the hell would they put me and Sasuke on the same team? I mean, come on, everyone knows he and I don't get along." Iruka gave his pupil a smile. Then he responded, "That's the point, Naruto." Naruto put that small detail aside, already preparing his retaliation against the Jonin. "We all know you don't get along, so we want to see if you two can put that aside and work together. Oh, and Kakashi asked for both of you, too." Naruto growled. He pointed to Sasuke and said, "I understand why he would ask for me. I'm fantastic, but who would want that useless slug over there?" Sasuke returned the snarl, though it was a little less noticeable. He told Naruto, "Just don't get in my way, you moron." After deciding it wasn't worth fighting over at the moment, Naruto sat down and humped. In any case, Iruka wasn't at fault. Thinking to himself, "I'll get Kakashi for this." The teams were picked up by their sensei one by one after Iruka completed announcing the remaining teams and handling the fallout from the announcements, primarily from Sakura and Ino complaining about how they definitely should have been on Sasuke's team and Sakura complaining about Shino and Kiba, to whose team she had been assigned. It had been a good hour since the last team, excluding Team 7, had been picked up, and Kakashi had not been seen. Naruto was mostly just sitting quietly, but he was growing increasingly frustrated with this bullshit. Although he would have liked to speak with Hinata, he felt completely uneasy doing so in front of Sasuke. The same was true for Hinata. Any good emotions the two might have had in his absence were dampened by Sasuke's very presence. After 90 minutes of being there by himself, Naruto finally got up and started to move around the room because he had had enough of this and his nerves were a little frayed from Sasuke's presence, Kakashi's absence, fuming over Kakashi's request for both him and Sasuke, and wanting to talk to Hinata. "I sat there and watched him move around, doing seemingly random things like licking that chalk or moving an eraser half an inch. Hinata stood and stopped Naruto. She questioned him, "What are you doing?" Naruto smiled. With a cheeky gleam in his eye, he declared, "I'm getting some retribution on Kakashi for all the crap he's putting me through today. First he forces me onto a team with hat over there, then he makes me wait with him for over a freaking hour." Hinata laughed. "What are you doing, though? I can't make heads or tails of what you're actually, doing," she replied. Naruto laughed. He said, "You want to help?" Hinata blushed at his smile and the sparkle in his eye, but she nodded. "All right, here's what you can do. You see that spool of wire sitting on the shelf in the back?" Hinata gave a second nod. "Grab that, and we'll set up the trap." Hinata picked up the spool of ninja wire Naruto had been discussing after walking to the back of the room. She then picked up some tiny nails that she had noticed. Sasuke addressed Hinata on her way back up to Naruto's location. "Why are you encouraging his idiotic behavior?" asked the man. Sasuke remained silent while Naruto glared at him. Calmly replied Hinata, "We're both pretty annoyed with Kakashi, it's not just him, and I don't think we should just let this nonsense slide. If you want to help us, you're welcome to, but otherwise, just sit there and let us work." Sasuke gave an eye roll. "Okay, fine, I get that, but do you two really think a Jonin is going to fall for a lame trap like that?" Hinata remarked, "Well, if he does, it'll be funny. And if he doesn't," Naruto continued, "at least he'll know not to drop his guard around us." Sasuke gave a snort. He glared and said, "Go ahead and waste your time, I could not care less." As they proceeded to set up their trap, Naruto and Hinata rolled their eyes together and paid no attention to Sasuke. A few more minutes later, the room's door finally slid open, revealing a masked face. Ninja wire stopped Kakashi's first entrance into the room just as he opened his mouth to speak. His foot landed on a book, which somehow slid out from under him and sent him face first into the chalkboard as he stumbled forward after tripping over it. When he pulled back, a piece of chalk that had somehow adhered to the board was now adhering to his face. He sensed that it was wet. He didn't realize he was next to Iruka's desk when he pulled back, and he fell backward over it, landing flat on his back on the floor. Standing over their prone sensei were Naruto and Hinata. Naruto remarked, "That's what you get for making us wait." Hinata merely grinned. "Is this guy really a Jonin?" Sasuke asked himself. "I can't believe he fell for that." After getting up and cleaning himself up, Kakashi paused to observe his new pupils before stating, "My first impression of this group. You're a bunch of fools." Naruto gave a shrug. "First impressions can be deceiving, sensei. You know all about that, though, don't you?" he joked. After listening to what the blonde had to say, Kakashi momentarily realized that the spiky blonde hair looked familiar. He told himself, "Well, that shouldn't surprise me, he is Minato Sensei's son," and pushed the copyright Yavu feeling away. He said out loud, "All right, you three, meet me on the roof," and then he disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke were a little taken aback to discover that Kakashi was indeed on the academy's roof. Naruto said, "Okay, sensei," with impatience. "We're here. What do you want?" The man appeared to be grinning as Kakashi's visible eye closed. "We need to introduce ourselves, that's what," he stated. Naruto gave a snort. A hand was placed on his shoulder by Hinata. She said in a conciliatory manner, "I know we know one another, Naruto, but Kakashi Sensei doesn't know us." "That is true," Naruto responded, becoming somewhat more composed. "But we don't know you, either, Sensei, so why don't you go first?" Kakashi appeared taken aback. To be honest, he hadn't anticipated that suggestion at all. "Me?" he inquired. He considered it. "Well, I'm Kakashi Hitaki. If you really must know, I hate being roped into being a sensei, which the Hokage has tried many times now, so by default I hate you. I don't really care if you know what I like or not, since I hate you. I'm certainly not telling you my dreams for the future, even if I had any, and my hobbies are none of your business." Naruto gave a snort. "All you really told us was your name, so..." "Well, I'm Naruto Uzumaki," he simply said. Hinata laughed when he said, "And I hate you, too, sensei." His voice was so Sanji. Then Hinata decided to speak. She said simply, "As you can probably guess, my name is Hinata Hyuga." Sasuke snarled as Kakashi turned to face his last pupil. "And I'm Sasuke Uchiha, as I'm sure you are well aware," he said. The others were about to continue when Sasuke said, "I am an Avenger, and I will destroy Itachi Uchiha." The way Sasuke said his brother's name made Hinata shudder, Naruto snorted, and Kakashi grinned once more. He said, "All right, you three, meet me at 7 a.m. tomorrow on Training Ground 10, and then he disappeared under a cloud of leaves. As soon as Kakashi was gone, Sasuke stood up and departed as well. Naruto gave Hinata a smile. His words, finally, alone together, were sincere. Hinata's face became extremely red. She thought, he wants to be alone with me? Her mind wandered as Hinata passed out. He doesn't mean. He can't. This isn't. Can it be? She said. When Naruto saw that Hinata was fainting, he gasped. Before she could hit the ground, he grabbed her. He jumped off the academy and headed to the Hyuga complex, grinning to himself. I thought we were past this, Hinata. He dropped his friend off and headed home. I'm just glad Hinata's on my team. It almost makes being on Sasuke's team worth it. Naruto's final thought before falling asleep was as he crawled into bed. In her own bed, Hinata woke up from her faint. For a moment, she asked herself, wait. Was that all a dream? She decided it wasn't a dream after realizing she was still wearing her jacket and the other outfits she had worn to team assignments. She then recalled Naruto's remark and how it had caused her to faint. She thought to herself, bah. I thought I was past that. Then she looked at the clock and saw that it was 6:45 a.m. She thought, oh, no, I'm going to be late, and rushed to get ready and get to the training ground as close to on time as she could. Hinata was only a little taken aback to discover that Kakashi had not yet arrived at the training ground. Sitting in front of two posts, Naruto and Sasuke alternated between glaring at each other and ignoring each other. Hinata let out a sigh. I hope this isn't how they'll always be, or our time as a team is going to be terrible, she told herself. Naruto grinned as he saw Hinata arrive. He said, morning, Hinata, with a smile. Hinata returned his smile and took a seat close to him. I guess we're going to be waiting a while, if yesterday was any indication. Hinata gave a nod. I thought he'd be here by now, I was late after all, she replied. What do you suppose we should do while we wait? Naruto grinned. I'm glad you asked, he replied. Hinata arched an eyebrow in response to Naruto's statement. There's something I could use your help with, actually. She asked in silence what Naruto meant. Naruto showed Hinata a book he had taken from his kunai pouch. It was some kind of riddle book. Hinata inquired, what's this, a riddle book? Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, it's an old riddle book I found a while back. I've been trying to decode the riddles for about a year now. I think there's more to them than just riddles. Hinata glanced at it and understood his meaning almost instantly. There was something weird about the book itself, and the riddles were crazily complicated. She thought, wait, is this? And turned on her Byakugan. She saw a stream of chakra flowing over the book, as she had expected. I see what you mean. There's a genjutsu on this book, actually, she said, turning to face Naruto. Naruto lost his temper. I knew something was up with it, said the man. One of the riddles is literally impossible, so I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out what it was. A genjutsu, huh? That's interesting. What can we do about that? After observing the chakra's flow and other aspects of the genjutsu for a minute, Hinata remarked, I'm not sure, I'm not strong enough to dispel it. Maybe we can find someone who can. Naruto let out a sigh. He said, I was afraid of that, and he retracted the book. He sighed and returned it to his pouch, saying, I don't really want to show this to anyone else just yet, but at least now I know what's going on with it. Thanks, Hinata. Hinata grinned. You're very welcome, Naruto. I'm flattered you thought of me to show it to, she replied. Naruto laughed. Who else would I show it to? You're my best friend, he remarked nonchalantly. Hinata reddened slightly. She felt, his best friend. The thought made her smile. I knew we were friends, but I never realized he thought of me as his best friend, she said. Naruto laughed at Hinata's smile and flush, and then they heard a loud, "Foom" sound and looked up. Perched atop one of the posts in the clearing, Kakashi emerged from the cloud of smoke that the sound had signaled. Kakashi remarked, "Oh, good, you're all here." "Yeah, we all got here before you," Naruto replied. "You were late, and you're the one who said what time to be here." Kakashi ignored this remark with a blithe eye. Smile. "All right, you three. It's time for your final test," he stated. At the bewildered expressions on the faces of the three genin, he clarified, "I have one more test to give you, and if you fail that, you'll go back to the academy. The test you took at the academy was just to choose genin candidates." Naruto gave an eye roll. He said, "All right, what's the test?" Kakashi produced a pair of bells. "Simple," he said. He hung the bells from his belt and said, "You just have to take these bells from me." Hinata remarked, "But there's only 2 bells." Kakashi remarked, "That's right, there are only 2, that means that no matter what, at least one of you will end up failing." Naruto put a hand on Hinata's shoulder while maintaining a determined expression. When Kakashi realized this, he grinned to himself. You have 1 hour. Begin, he said out loud. Naruto seized Hinata and they both disappeared after Sasuke disappeared alone. Hinata and Naruto touched down in a bush close by. Naruto stated, "We have to work together. There's no way we can get those bells alone." Hinata grinned. "Yeah, I got that too. A ninja needs to know when they're being screwed with, after all," she replied. "We should try to get Sasuke to work with us, too. I know you two don't get along, but we need all the help we can get." Naruto gave this some thought. "You're right, as much as I hate to admit it. Come on, let's go find him," he replied. After Hinata located Sasuke using her Byakugan, the two headed to his hiding place. Hinata whispered, "Sasuke, from close by. We need to work together to get the bells." "Forget that," retorted Sasuke bitterly. "You heard him, one of us will fail no matter what. I'm getting those bells myself." After saying this, Sasuke leapt to his feet and went up to Kakashi. When the black-haired boy was buried up to his neck in the ground following a brief altercation with the Jonin, Naruto and Hinata found it extremely difficult to contain their laughter. "Sasuke, really, we should work together. We might actually stand a chance that way," Hinata said as she and Naruto walked up to Sasuke's head. "Screw you," retorted Sasuke. "I'll get out of here and get a bell. I touched one just now, I'll get one next time." Naruto and Hinata turned their backs on Sasuke and sighed. Naruto questioned, "He's a lost cause, isn't he?" Hinata remarked, "Sure seems that way. Oh, well, it's his problem now." Hinata and Naruto conducted a quick search. They discovered Kakashi close by and came up behind him. Kakashi heard a faint noise close by while he was reading his favorite book. "Ah, so they're finally preparing to come at me," he was thinking. "I wonder if they got the point." Kakashi had to jump to avoid a small group of shuriken that were flying out of the bushes in front of him. To his slight surprise, a Naruto clone was flying directly at him. Its head struck Kakashi in the stomach. Then both were engulfed in a cloud of smoke, and when it dissipated, the Jonin had been on a log. Kakashi was in one of the nearby trees. As he landed there, Hinata attacked him without warning, which caught him off guard. After avoiding a few gentle fist blows, Kakashi kicked Hinata in the stomach with little force, knocking the wind out of her as she fell to the ground. Kakashi said, "You'll never beat me with that," as he hit the ground close to Hinata. Naruto remarked, "She wasn't trying to," as he kicked for the Jonin's legs from behind Kakashi. Kakashi easily jumped to avoid the attack, but this time he ran into Hinata in midair. She was well enough to attack him once more. Kakashi felt a chakra point in his hand close as he deflected her attack. After they both got back on the ground, Naruto attacked Kakashi once more. A taijutsu battle then broke out, with both Naruto and Hinata advancing on Kakashi. Kakashi grinned. He wasn't really struggling to keep up with these two, but he was taken aback by the degree of skill they were both exhibiting. There was a lot of promise in Naruto in particular. On one occasion, Kakashi attempted to use his 1,000 years of death on Naruto, but all he managed to hit was a clone. He couldn't believe he hadn't noticed a difference. He said to himself, "So, they do get it, these two are a perfect team, and they didn't hesitate for a second to work together. It's just too bad they didn't get Sasuke to join them." "Sasuke, I can see you over there, come help us. We need you," shouted Hinata as Kakashi was saying this. From a nearby tree, Sasuke's voice was heard again. "I told you, I'll get a bell on my own. I'm just waiting for you two to get out of my way." This startled Kakashi so much that he let his guard down long enough for Naruto to swipe the bells. The bell test ended when he gave Hinata one. "Well, that wasn't so bad," Naruto enthusiastically remarked while giving Hinata a back pat. "Naruto, Hinata, was that the first time you two tried to get Sasuke to join you?" said he. Naruto gave a snort. With a trace of resentment in his voice, he stated, "No, it was the third, actually. We tried twice before we came after you. He wouldn't help us, even when we told him we needed it." With a growl, Kakashi faced Sasuke. "You fail?" he burst out. "You will report to the academy tomorrow for remedial classes." Sasuke started to argue, but Kakashi replied, "Sasuke, you didn't even try to work as a member of this team. In fact, you refused to. That's what the test was about, and you failed. Go away." Even though Sasuke growled, he turned and left the clearing, dropping his headband as he went. Later, Kakashi leaned over and picked it up to bring back to the Hokage. He smiled and turned to face Naruto and Hinata, saying, "And you too pass. You are both now, officially, my genin." Kakashi let out a long sigh. This was really annoying. When he only defeated 2 of his assigned genin, he knew something was going to happen, but he didn't anticipate it happening so quickly. He had just, for heaven's sake, let Sasuke down yesterday, and he could only assume that he was being called to the Hokage's office to explain himself. In fact, the last 20 minutes had been spent keeping him waiting. Go freaking figure, his mind said. The one time I show up on time, they keep me waiting. That figures. Kakashi fidgeted for a few more minutes, feeling both nervous and irritated, before being told he could enter the Hokage's actual office. Kakashi opened the door, stepped inside, and just stood in front of the Hokage's desk, waiting to be spoken to. He was aware of the likely topic of this, but he was not going to be the first to mention it. Wearing his enormous hat, the third Hokage sat at his desk. He didn't usually do that, but at the moment he felt compelled to make Kakashi aware of his true identity. To bolster his nerves, he smoked his pipe. He wasn't really looking forward to this conversation, and the situation was awkward to say the least. The Hokage inhaled deeply, then exhaled a cloud of smoke before speaking. Kakashi, I gather you passed only 2 of your genin and sent the third, one Sasuke Uchiha, back to the academy, he replied. Kakashi let out a sigh. Damn, he had anticipated a little more time than this, but he knew this was coming. Well, it's worthless. We might as well finish this. He inhaled, briefly closed his open eye, then opened it again and answered. Simply, yes, I did, he replied. He had a hunch he knew where this was headed, but he wasn't going to make it any easier. He already didn't like it, and unless he was forced to, he wasn't going to cooperate. In his many years, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, had witnessed a great deal. For some reason, this was the first time he had ever witnessed this occur. First, one genin had been let down by his jonin. Now, in this discussion about said event, the same jonin was being remarkably uncooperative. In a way, it was unsettling. Hiruzen eventually realized that since Kakashi was just standing there silently, there was nothing else to do. He let out another sigh. He tried to sound serious when he said, you know full well, you were supposed to pass or fail the team, not the individuals, but instead he came across as more inquisitive. Kakashi didn't even look, to which he replied, that's exactly what I did. I passed the team. Hiruzen was surprised by that. That wasn't one of the things he was expecting Kakashi to say. Actually, he hadn't even considered that specific response. He pondered for a moment, failing to think of any clear explanation, and then he said, please, Kakashi, explain this. Kakashi let out a sigh and briefly closed his eye once more. He had not been anticipating this moment in the conversation, but he knew it would come. Kakashi opened his eye again and looked at his leader's face, hat and all, and realized after a moment why the man was wearing the symbol of his rank. They were putting him in his proper place. It was an unpleasant sensation. After taking a moment to think, Kakashi finally said, Naruto and Hinata had a perfect natural feel for teamwork. They actually managed to swipe the bells from me by working together. I'm not sure when Naruto got the skills he has, but he's far better than I feel like he should be at his age. Regardless, those two worked so well together, I would have sworn they've been doing it for years. Hiruzen thought about it. The Hokage was far from stupid, and he quickly realized what Kakashi had not mentioned, but what Kakashi said explained why he had passed those two. He inquired, and what of Sasuke? Kakashi let out a sigh. I watched as Naruto and Hinata tried 3 separate times to get Sasuke to join them and work as part of their team. Sasuke blatantly refused to do this. He said over and over he would pass the test himself, on his own, and didn't need their help, he stated. He waited for the Hokage to consider this. He continued, seeing as Naruto and Hinata both got the point of the test and displayed their teamwork skills extremely well, I passed them. Since Sasuke not only missed the point, he refused to do what the test called for, even when his peers were telling him to, I failed him. I see no other way I could have done this. Hiruzen let out a sigh. Kakashi was correct. This should not have come as a surprise to Hiruzen. After all, Kakashi was regarded as an amazing jonin for a reason. Hiruzen pondered for a few minutes before posing the question, would you consider giving Sasuke a make-up test? Kakashi gave a headshake. There wouldn't be any point. He would know what the test was now, and he would do it just to pass, he stated. The whole point of the test is to see if they can work together without knowing that's what the test is on and with everything telling them not to do so. Hiruzen let out a sigh. He'd say, you're not wrong, still, as you can imagine, my advisors are throwing a huge fit over your failing the Uchiha. Kakashi gave an eye roll. I figured that's what this was about. Lord Hokage, if I may, please tell me what you think of this situation yourself. Hiruzen laughed. Kakashi had clearly read his remark. Honestly, I expected this, he said. Sasuke's teamwork scores in the academy were among the worst we've ever seen. And I do mean the worst. If you had passed them all, I would have been seriously questioning you about Sasuke passing that test of all things. Kakashi's eyebrow went up. So you're telling me you gave me a genin, knowing my test was based on teamwork and knowing how highly I value that particular trait, whose teamwork scores were absolutely abysmal. Hiruzen laughed once more. Well, Iruka told me that Sasuke and Naruto had a bit of bad blood. I was hoping if they were on a team together, and if you were their sensei, they would be able to get past that. Also, you requested Naruto. Kakashi grinned. I regret nothing. I'm very glad to have Naruto on my team. He and Hinata are wonderful genin. As I said, I don't know where in the world Naruto got the skills he has, but I have no qualms about teaching those two. Hiruzen grinned. I can clear that up, actually. Naruto has been training since he was very young. Before the Uchiha massacre, when Itachi was still a loyal leaf ninja, he took Naruto under his wing. He trained Naruto for a long time. I'm not exactly sure how long, but it was several years. This is where Kakashi began. Wait, Itachi trained him? I thought Itachi was too busy with his brother before that mess to care about anyone else. Well, he wasn't, replying Hiruzen. I'm not sure how they met or anything like that, you'd have to ask Naruto about that, but I do know Naruto has been trained hard by his senpai, as he calls Itachi. Kakashi laughed. That does explain a lot, actually, he replied. After that, he had an idea. He trailed off, uncertain of how to express the sudden realization without the Hokage's privacy seals in effect. Wait. If he was Itachi's apprentice, does that mean? The Hokage saw where Kakashi's mind had wandered. He removed his hat and turned on the seals on his office. I think I know where your thoughts were going, Kakashi, and to answer your question, yes. Naruto has been inducted into the Anbu. He was made an Anbu the same day Itachi became a captain in their ranks. As you well know, I don't know the identity of every Anbu by mask or anything like that, but I know who they all are, and I know Naruto is one of them. Kakashi remarked, I think I've seen him in his mask then. After hearing this, he realized that his da copyright Yavu feeling made perfect sense. I knew something about him looked familiar beyond just Minato. Sensei's looks. I knew it, he hadn't given it much thought before. Should I train him differently, then? He asked, turning back to the Hokage. The Hokage grinned. No, you shouldn't. He's just a genin as far as you're concerned. If I have need of his Anbu abilities, I'll do my best to let you know so you know where he is, he replied with a slight grin. What kinds of Anbu missions has he taken? Kakashi inquired, clearly worried. Body guarding, primarily, said Hiruzen. I don't think he's quite ready for assassination missions yet, and his age precludes him from seduction missions, despite his rather unique original jutsu. Kakashi inquired, may I see a dossier of his mission experience? With a nod, Hiruzen gave Kakashi a folder. Thank you. Hiruzen chuckled. It's your right to know your genin's experience. Oh, and before you ask, no, I won't tell you anything that's not in there, said the man. Kakashi laughed. When he said, I wasn't going to ask that, he pointed to the folder and said, I remember all too well how secretive Anbu missions and lives are. Do you need this back? Hiruzen gave a headshake. Those are copies. Simply destroy them once you're done with them. Might I ask what you're looking for there? Kakashi gave a shrug. I'm not sure myself, really. Is there anything else I should know? After a moment, Hiruzen shook his head. Not that I know of, he replied in response. If you think of anything else, feel free to ask either me or Naruto. Tell him the Anbu code, and he'll get the point. Kakashi gave nod. Did you need anything else, Lord Hokage? No, Kakashi, that will be all, the Hokage replied, replacing his hat and releasing the seal on the room. I would ask that you reconsider your decision concerning Sasuke, he added for the benefit of his advisors. Understanding the original context of this statement, Kakashi retorted, and I refuse, Lord Hokage. I'm sorry, but Sasuke failed my test miserably, while Naruto and Hinata passed it with flying colors. Then Hiruzen posed one last query. Do you require a replacement third genin? Kakashi thought about it. After a moment, he asked rhetorically, Naruto knows the shadow clone, does he not? Hiruzen gave a nod. Naruto can then be any number, from 1 to 1,000, in theory. Why would I need a third genin with that? After giving this some thought, Hiruzen started laughing. I never thought of it that way, he said after calming down for a moment. He then laughed again and added, I won't force you to change your decision. You seem quite set on it. I will ask that you not make too much of yourselves, however. Kakashi laughed. Don't worry about that, he said blithely, grinning. We'll be plenty subtle. Do you have a mission for my team? Kakashi asked before turning to go. Hiruzen gave a small smile. You know what, take this as a second half of your test. If your team can complete this mission, I won't question you on taking them as a two-man squad ever again, he said as he handed Kakashi the scroll. Kakashi grabbed it and pulled it open. His expression dropped. Really? That cat is still getting away? He responded. Hiruzen laughed. It's not the same cat, but yes, she's still having that same issue, he responded. Now, see if your new genin can help her out. Kakashi laughed. They won't like this. Hiruzen chuckled. I know, but they'll do it anyway. Kakashi returned to the Hokage's tower with Naruto and Hinata within an hour of leaving. Naruto was walking next to Hinata with his hands behind his head and a smug smile on his face while Hinata carried a sleeping cat. Every ninja in the village who had ever had to chase that damn cat looked at them in disbelief as they passed. How on earth they had managed to do this was a mystery to them all. When they arrived at the Hokage's office, Hinata gave the cat to its owner, who embraced it too tightly, cooing over it and essentially squashing the poor creature. With caution, Hinata said, Madam Shijimi? The woman, the feudal lord's wife from the land of fire, looked up and arched an eyebrow at the young girl who had spoken so directly to her. Please, don't squish the poor kitty. The woman was looking at the cat in her hands when she suddenly noticed that the poor creature appeared to be crying. Hinata gently removed the cat from her and held it in her arms, allowing it to lie comfortably there. Hinata gently placed the cat on the lady's arms when she imitated her posture. The woman walked away, holding her cat tenderly. The cat meowed softly and gave Hinata a thank you look. Hinata grinned. All of this was being closely observed by Naruto. I should get Hinata a cat, he pondered. Hiruzen was clearly shocked as he watched all of this. He said, How? Who? What? With eloquence. Kakashi chuckled. Hinata has a way with animals, it turns out. Naruto's clones and Hinata's Byakugan helped, too. They made it absolute child's play to find that freaking cat. Bewildered, Naruto turned to face his sensei and Hokage. He questioned, what's the big deal? It's just a cat. This caused the Hokage and Kakashi to perspire. He and Hinata had no trouble catching that cat, so why should anyone else? Naruto would never understand why everyone thought it was so difficult. After shaking his head at the antics of his team, Kakashi asked the Hokage, Do you have anything else for us to do today, Lord Hokage? Kakashi easily caught the scroll that the Hokage threw at him. Since you're so confident, your team can have this mission. It's a C rank. Let's see how you handle this one, he said with a slight grin. Kakashi looked at the scroll after opening it. This is a long-term mission. Are you sure you want to give us this one so soon? He inquired. Hiruzen gave a nod. He stated, unless you don't think your genin can handle it, that is, while wearing a playful expression. Kakashi returned the eye. Smile. He remarked blithely, no, not at all, we can handle it. Okay, you two, we leave first thing in the morning. Go home and pack. Meet at the village gate at 8 a.m. sharp. Naruto questioned, what is the mission, Kakashi, sensei? Oh, exclaimed Kakashi. I forgot to tell you. We're being assigned to patrol the trade routes that led from the land of Fire A and the village here A to the village hidden in the sand in the land of Wind. The routes go through the land of Rivers, which has been having issues lately with bandits. We are to patrol the routes and see if we can catch and or eliminate the bandits. Hinata shifted around a little. Though she hadn't anticipated it happening so quickly, she had known that they would eventually be sent out of the village together. The idea of being out there, practically alone, with Naruto made her face flush. She wasn't particularly concerned about the mission itself. It would have been easy for someone to see smoke escaping from her ears. What are we to do if we arrive in sand and don't encounter anything? Kakashi asked, turning to face the Hokage. Hiruzen grinned. If you make it there, spend a week in the village, then return along a different route. The mission continues. And if you still don't encounter anything, keep going back and forth. You have 3 months, and you can make up to 5 trips each way. If you go that many and encounter nothing, the mission is a success and ends. The idea of spending so much time with Naruto in the wilderness like that made Hinata redder. Naruto became aware of this. He said, You okay, Hinata? With a reply, Oh, yes, I'm fine, Naruto. He approached her and said, You sure? You look like you might have a fever. He placed a hand on her forehead and Hinata fainted at his touch. Before she hit the ground, Naruto grabbed her. Wow, she hasn't done that in a long time, he commented. Kakashi perspired at this and said, Wonder what brought that on. Is the child truly that ignorant? He disappeared in a flurry of leaves after Naruto turned to Kakashi and said, I'll take her home, and we'll see you in the morning. Kakashi questioned, That kid? How can he be so skilled and yet so dense? Hiruzen retorted, He's not really dense, he's just not used to people really liking him. He felt the need to respond to Kakashi's question even though he knew it had been rhetorical. Kakashi let out a sigh. If I'm sane by the time they hit Chunin, it'll be a miracle. Hiruzen laughed. We're ninja. Sanity is overrated. Two surprises were waiting for Naruto and Hinata when they arrived at the gate the next morning. To begin with, Kakashi was already present. Second, he was present, albeit with a massive cart that was empty. Naruto questioned, "What's with the cart, Kakashi?" "Sensei." Although Hinata had the same question, she remained silent. "Oh, this? I studied the mission a bit more and came up with a plan," Kakashi stated. "The bandits are only attacking people with carts like this one, and only those who seem defenseless." "Okay, but then why is the cart empty?" "They're not going to attack us if we don't have anything," Naruto replied. Kakashi grinned. Naruto appeared perplexed, so Kakashi clarified, "I need you to make several low chakra clones. Have them transform into various things, and they'll ride in the cart." "This is very true, Naruto. But you can fix that." Naruto smiled. "Oh, I get you. And if we do get attacked, they can turn back into clones and help in the fight." Element of surprise. Kakashi gave his pupil a proud smile. "Exactly." Hinata gave Kakashi a look. "And what should I do, Kakashi Sensei?" Hinata. "I hate to say it, but there's only one way you can pass for defenseless. You're going to have to ride on the cart. If anyone sees us, we'll tell them you're blind." Hinata's confidence wavered. She said, "Oh, okay," and got into the cart. Naruto created multiple clones, each of whom changed into a different random object and climbed into the cart's back. In the meantime, Naruto positioned himself atop one of the cart's two carry poles. Hinata said, "I'm sorry, Naruto," as she stood by him. Naruto gave her a startled look. He asked, completely perplexed as to why she would say that. "For what, Hinata?" Hinata's expression was dejected as she said, "I can't help you with this, and you have to pull my weight too." Naruto chuckled. "First off, Hinata, my clones weigh way more than you do. Second, it's not your fault. Your eyes are way too distinctive to not be noticed, and if we don't say this, they'll know who you are, and they might not attack us." Hinata thought about it. She said, "That's true, but still, I feel bad," after a brief pause. At that moment, Kakashi stepped forward and seized the other pole. His words, "Don't worry about it, Hinata," he added. "Besides, if we do get attacked, you fighting back will just add to the whole element of surprise thing," after Hinata gave him a dejected look. After giving that some thought, Hinata smiled slightly. "I could use my Byakugan, too, if you think that will help," she added after a brief stop. Kakashi gave a small laugh. "It would help, for sure, but how long can you keep it active? You won't be any good to us if you end up with chakra exhaustion before we even get into a fight." Hinata thought about it. "I'll turn it on every hour, just to see if anyone is nearby," she stated. Kakashi gave this a nod. "All right," said Naruto. He was excited, but he was trying his hardest not to show it. He had previously left the village, but not in the capacity of a typical ninja. Let's get this show on the road. For what seemed like the 100th time that day, Kakashi gave an eye smile. After saying, "Yes, let's go," he and Naruto picked up the cart and set off. For approximately an hour, they had been strolling in silence before Hinata lost her patience. Although she wasn't particularly outgoing, the unsettling quiet among her coworkers was making her nervous. "Naruto," she murmured. Although she wanted to break the silence, she was hesitant to do so. Turning, Naruto faced her. He said, "Yes, Hinata?" In his heart, he was relieved that she had spoken. He would never acknowledge that it had also been making him nervous. "I haven't seen anything out there, even with my Byakugan," she replied. Just a few minutes earlier, she had performed a Byakugan scan. "I guess it should be comforting that no one is out there, but it's making me nervous." Naruto laughed. "I know what you mean," he replied in response. "I keep feeling like something is about to happen. I almost wish it would just happen and get it over with. This waiting is terrible." Then Kakashi spoke up. "You shouldn't wish for that," he counseled. He was gently reminding his team to remain true to themselves and to avoid tempting fate when he said, "We need to get this stuff through the land of rivers to deliver it to the hidden sand." Naruto laughed. Taking the hint, he responded, "I guess that's true, still, this anticipation is killing me." Kakashi chuckled. "Don't worry, you two. There's a chance we'll run into trouble, but, even if we do, you won't be in any danger. I'll put my life on the line to protect you." Hinata gave a small smile. "Thank you, Kakashi," she said, not looking at him but rather toward the general area where he had been. She was staring into the middle distance as if blind because she had also taken his hint. Even though he knew what she was doing, Kakashi couldn't help but feel a little uneasy at that. Hinata's decision to not refer to Kakashi as sensei also seemed strange, but if anyone heard, it would reveal their secret. Naruto grinned. He uttered, "I will, too, Hinata." Hinata was able to discern that he was speaking both as himself and in his character. Throughout, she reddened slightly. Kakashi laughed. "You too will be the death of me yet, you know that?" he replied. Naruto gave his sensei a smile. Yeah, you know you love us." Kakashi considered this. He didn't want to tell the child that he couldn't really deny what he had said. When Kakashi said, "If that's what you want to think," he smiled. Naruto laughed. He responded, "Well, you didn't deny it," with a playful twinkle in his eyes. Kakashi simply grinned at this. There was really nothing he could say. "Man, that kid is good," he had a thought. "He saw right through my bluff in a second." Hinata laughed at what they were doing. She was undoubtedly happy that she had spoken up. Naruto turned and grinned at her. "You better be careful smiling like that, Naruto. You're liable to end up with a bunch of stalker fan girls," she said after blushing slightly. This caused Naruto to laugh. "Oh, don't worry, Hinata, that smile is just for you," he replied. At this, Hinata flushed violently. She thought, he has a special smile just for me? Hinata found that idea to be entirely reasonable in relation to Naruto. For different people, he would smile differently. He might be flirting with her, she thought for a moment, but brushed it off. He had stated clearly that they were friends, so there was little possibility that he would ever feel otherwise. Nevertheless, the idea did give her hope. The response from Hinata made Naruto laugh. "Why is she so cute when she blushes like that?" asked he. He shook his head and turned his attention back to the road in front of them, oblivious to the faint flush that was dusting his cheeks. But to Kakashi, it was obvious. With a sly smile, he told himself, "I might actually give them a nudge toward each other if it weren't so much fun watching these two try to act like they're not into each other." Not for the first time, he was relieved that his mask concealed his face, preventing anyone from seeing his smile. The three fell into a largely embarrassed but incredibly friendly silence as they considered those ideas. Before Kakashi spoke again, they walked in silence for a few more hours. He said, "We should stop here and make camp," as they entered a handy clearing. After giving a nod, Naruto and Kakashi put the cart down. They had been pulling that thing all day, so it was good to let their muscles unwind. After Hinata got off the cart, the three of them got to work setting up camp. Naruto didn't know how to set up a campsite, which shocked Kakashi. Naruto clarified that although he had occasionally ventured outside the village, he had always returned the same day, so he had never needed to set up camp. They quickly had a smokeless fire and were cooking some of the supplies Kakashi had brought with them after Kakashi and Hinata assisted Naruto with the specifics of setting up a camp, erecting tents, starting a fire, and other tasks. After Hinata confirmed that there was nobody in the area, he opened the scroll in his pouch that contained the items they required. After eating, Kakashi and Naruto sneaked into a tent and fell asleep in a matter of seconds. It had worn them out pulling that cart. After cleaning up the dinner dishes and keeping an eye on the fire, Hinata sat up a little longer before slipping into her tent as well. Hinata was bursting with energy and unable to sleep after spending the entire day sitting on that cart and not doing much. Kakashi and Naruto had advised her not to do too much at camp in order to maintain the illusion of blindness. She eventually crept out of her tent and headed toward the nearby creek where Naruto had previously gotten water. Hinata trained for a short while after arriving. Her Byakugan was inactive because it wouldn't have displayed any chakra points anyway, so she was using gentle fist strikes to strike a tree when she heard a voice. It questioned, "What are you doing here?" Hinata turned after leaping. Behind a tree, Naruto emerged. She exclaimed, "Oh, Naruto." With relief. She calmed down for a minute before responding to his question, "You scared me. I couldn't sleep. Being on that cart all day left me with a bunch of energy." Naruto grinned. "I had to answer nature's call, and I was about to head back when I heard a noise, so I came to see what it was." Hinata gave a nod. "Yeah, it's just me. I'll go back and sleep soon, I just needed to burn off some energy." Naruto gave Hinata a back pat. "I know, it's hard not doing anything. We're not trying to make you feel useless, it's just for the cover." Hinata nodded, grinning. "I know, I'll be fine. It's just hard having so much energy and trying to sleep." Naruto laughed. "I know the feeling. I'm going to go back to bed now. Don't stay up too late." Hinata gave a nod. "I'll go to bed soon. See you in the morning, Naruto." "Would you like me to leave a clone with you?" Naruto asked after giving it some thought. Hinata gave him a look and arched an eyebrow. "I'll be fine, Naruto. There's no one out here." Naruto chuckled. "I know, I didn't mean that, I meant to keep you company." Hinata laughed. He meant that, of course, she ought to have understood. After giving it some thought, she nodded. Sure, that would be nice, she replied. After creating a clone, Naruto disappeared once more into the trees. After a brief exchange of words, Hinata returned to training while the clone watched. To be honest, she enjoyed the company. She wasn't concerned about being discovered or anything, but it was a little awkward to be by herself at night. Additionally, Naruto was always a pleasure to be around. Hinata relished every moment of the pleasant evening. Hinata told the clone it could dispel it, and after an hour of training, she went back to bed. That was a fun time, she reflected. With that in mind, Hinata went to sleep and dreamed of having a life, a family, with Naruto for the remainder of the night. I'm glad Naruto stayed out there with me. I just wish he would always stay with me. Naruto was breathing rapidly and shallowly. Once more, he and Kakashi had spent the entire day pushing that fucking cart. His muscles and nerves were being strained by the daily, continuous cart pulling that had been a part of their mission for a week. The whole time they had been traveling, nothing had happened, and he was getting bored and anxious. Though she was still enjoying herself a little bit for simply being outside with Naruto, Hinata felt essentially the same. As they traveled, Kakashi found it increasingly difficult to control his own nervous energy, to prevent themselves from going completely crazy. He and Naruto would periodically put on a burst of speed. Naruto was panting because they had just completed one of these speed bursts. Hinata was grinning. It was enjoyable to ride through those fast moments. After giggling, Hinata said something softly. It's a good thing I'm not really blind, or I would probably have serious trouble staying on the cart when you two do that, she replied. Naruto laughed. I guess that's true, he remarked. Sorry. Hinata gave a headshake. She insisted, oh, no, don't worry. It's fun to ride through those. Kakashi grinned. You know, I'm starting to understand what you two meant about almost wishing for something to just happen, he replied. He looked around the trail a little and said, and I think we might just get our wish before too long. This constant nothing really is annoying. What do you mean? Asked Naruto, who also looked around but failed to see whatever Kakashi had seen. Hinata was also staring at Kakashi in confusion. Kakashi indicated what appeared to be an arbitrary location on the path. That's the border with the land of rivers, said the man. If anything is going to happen, it'll probably be there. Naruto gave this some thought. Kakashi nodded in agreement and said, well, I doubt they'll attack us right on the border. That would just be asking for trouble. Still, we'd best not drop our guard. Hinata activated her Byakugan after taking that as a cue. There's no one nearby. Other than the border guard a bit that way, she said, pointing away from the trail, deactivating it after taking a brief glance around. Kakashi turned to look where Hinata had pointed. He nodded. They were going to be close to a border guard post. He said, all right, after a pause. We should just stick to the path for now. No reason not to, really. They were well into the land of rivers in a few more hours. Kakashi declared that it was time to set up camp since the sun was starting to set. Two figures appeared as the three of them stopped in a little clearing off the trail. The three of them knew one very well. The other one had a human shark-like appearance. Naruto began, hello, Itachi. Senpai, growling. At least for the time being, he had to pretend that he didn't trust Itachi. As long as Kisame, the shark-like man, was awake, Naruto had to pretend that Itachi was his enemy because he knew that Kisame didn't know Itachi's true identity, status, or mission. The most difficult aspect of the entire arrangement was that Itachi gave his former apprentice a small smile before turning to face his friend. Kisame gave Itachi a fleeting glance before collapsing and losing consciousness. Itachi remarked, there. Now we can talk. Naruto grinned. It was about freaking time, he replied. I was wondering when you'd catch up with me. Wait, what? Kakashi asked eloquently after glancing at the two. Being invisible is easier with a mask, wouldn't you say, Kakashi? Itachi said without replying. The reply Kakashi heard himself say was, a visible mask makes invisibility far simpler. Naruto let out a gasp. He said, Kakashi. Sensei? You're an Anbu? Kakashi gave nod. I guess that explains a lot. Kakashi laughed. He questioned, so, what's going on here? I thought Itachi turned traitor. Itachi let out a sigh. Should I tell them, Naruto, or would you rather? He inquired. Naruto looked at his sensei and teammate. Kakashi. Sensei, Hinata, I guess this is as good a time as any to explain this. Itachi isn't a traitor, he replied. He went on to describe the actual events of the night of the Uchiha massacre and how he and Itachi had been communicating ever since. Kakashi said, I see, not knowing how to respond to all of that. I guess it makes sense. And I already knew about you training with Itachi, Naruto, although I didn't know anything about you being his contact or any of that. Then Hinata raised her voice. She questioned, so, you're an ANBU, Naruto? Although she hadn't fully comprehended Itachi's remarks, she had deduced that there was a code when Kakashi responded in such a particular way, and she knew Naruto had noticed. Naruto gave a nod. So, was this just a cover mission for you to meet up with Itachi? Hinata asked after giving that some thought. Naruto gave a headshake. Itachi finds me when he can when I'm out of the village. I had no idea he would do it here or now, he stated. And none of my missions is ever a cover. We just use the opportunities when they arise. Then Itachi spoke. It took us a while to figure out how to snow Kisame over there, he stated. I had to come up with a genjutsu just for him, more or less. He's now convinced that Naruto can use the fox's chakra way more than he really can, and he's pretty much afraid of him, although he would never admit that. Itachi brought up the fox, and Naruto winced. But before he could become too agitated, Hinata spoke up. Don't worry, Naruto, I figured that out a while ago, she replied. Naruto turned to face her, startled. I saw you using red chakra one time during one of your training sessions, and I put 2 and 2 together. Naruto found this surprising. He said, you saw that? Hinata gave a nod. And you're still my friend? Hinata chuckled. A scroll isn't a kunai just because there's a kunai in it, she stated. After giving that some thought, Naruto laughed appreciatively. Besides, if you were the fox, I think you would have done something to hurt the people in the village long before now, Hinata said, giving him a small embrace. Itachi gave the 2 genin a smile. You seem to have made a very good friend, Naruto, he remarked with pride. Naruto gave a nod. I guess I can pass my information to your whole team from now on, then, Itachi added, turning to face Naruto and Kakashi. Naruto laughed. Yeah, you can. We're a team, so I would have eventually told them anything you tell me, anyway, he replied. Itachi gave a nod. I figured you'd feel that way. Alright, so, I have new intel on some members of the Akatsuki. Naruto grinned. Naruto and Kakashi paused to process the news, unsure of how to respond. I finally recognized another member. He is Sasori of the Sand, known for his insane mastery of the puppet. Master Jutsu. I believe he even made the 3rd Kazekage into a puppet, although I can't prove that. Itachi went on, he's been paired with the explosive style user, Deidara. With them, I think we've figured out the identity of all but a couple of the members of the group, at least. Naruto gave a nod. So, we've got Deidara, Sasori, that dude in the mask, the guy who can sew stuff, some guy with a weird scythe, Conan the paper user, you too, and that guy with the rods in his face, right? Itachi let out a sigh. You're never going to be good with names, are you, Naruto? Said he. Naruto gave a shrug. Itachi went on, well, yes, basically. The guy in the mask claims to be Madara, but he also goes by Tobi, so I think it's best to just call him that. The guy who can sew calls himself Kakuzu, but since that's the name of a ninja who once fought the first Hokage, I doubt that's really him. The one who uses a scythe is Hidan, and he claims to be immortal. And the one with the rods calls himself Pawn. So, who is it we don't know then? Inquired Kakashi. Itachi let out a sigh. Well, the true identity of Tobi and Kakuzu aren't certain. And we really have no idea who Pawn is. All I know is Conan sticks to Pawn like glue, so I think that's a hint. Maybe you should ask Jiraiya about that. He knew Conan a long time ago, from what I gather, so I suspect he might know who Pawn is, too. Itachi paused for a moment before choosing to include one final thing. I also discovered something new about him. His eyes always look weird to me. They're gray and have these circles in them. Apparently, that's called the Rinnegan. That might be a good hint to who exactly he is. Kakashi let out a gasp. He exclaimed, the Rinnegan? Itachi's eyes were questioning as he gazed at him. The Rinnegan is the legendary eyes supposedly held by the Sage of Six Paths. Itachi appeared taken aback by this. He uttered, oh, I see, so that's why he made such a big deal out of that. So, how would we be able to deal with that? Naruto inhaled deeply. By saying, I'm not sure, have you come up with anything in terms of what exactly the Akatsuki is trying to accomplish? Itachi let out a sigh. That's the one thing no one seems to be able to answer. I would imagine Pawn could tell me, seeing as he's kind of the de facto leader of the group, but I can never get him to talk to me. He's very reclusive. So far, all we've been doing is working as mercenaries. Naruto gave a nod. From what you've said, that's probably making Kakuzu, or whoever he is, plenty happy, he laughed. Itachi laughed. Yeah, he's having the time of his life, more or less. He loves money, seemingly more than just about anything. Naruto gave a nod. Well, I guess the next thing we need to figure out is what the hell the Akatsuki is after, he continued. I hope you can figure that out for the next time we meet up. Itachi gave a nod. Please report what I have figured out to the Hokage next chance you get, said the man. Naruto gave a nod. Then he made a clone, who nodded and fled back to the village through the woods. Itachi laughed. Naruto laughed and rubbed the back of his head, saying, You and that freaking jutsu. It's just your thing, isn't it? Then Kakashi spoke up. He said, So, did you teach him that, Itachi? Itachi gave a nod. I assume you told him about the memory transfer. Itachi had the resources to appear ashamed of this. You know, I never thought about that. I figured he'd pick up on it eventually on his own. In order to avoid face palming, Kakashi had to apply every bit of his Anbu training. It's Naruto. You should assume he won't figure out anything on his own. Naruto humped. I figured out about the fox on my own, I'll have you know, he responded. Kakashi appeared somewhat taken aback by this. You did? He inquired. Both Naruto and Itachi nodded in agreement. I see. I guess I need to stop underestimating you, don't I? Naruto gave a wink. Still, did you know about the memory transfer aspect of the clones? Naruto's eyebrow went up. He inquired, What do you mean? Kakashi let out a sigh. Have you never noticed that when your clones dispel their memories come back to you? Naruto chuckled. Oh, that. Yeah, I figured that out a long time ago. Actually, one of the earliest meetings I had with Itachi after the massacre, I sent a clone, he responded. Itachi was taken aback. It was, you did? He said. Naruto gave a nod. Why? Naruto chuckled. I couldn't get away from the village myself one time. And I knew you wouldn't hit me unless we sparred, which I made sure the clone wouldn't do, so I knew it would be fine. And once it dispelled after you left, I was able to report your intel to the Hokage just fine. Itachi gave an eye roll. You could have told me you figured that out, you know, he replied. Naruto chuckled. He responded, What, and ruined the surprise. This made Hinata laugh. Surprised, everyone turned to her. They had nearly forgotten she was there because she had been so silent. It figures Naruto would hold on to something like that, she replied. She grinned at him and said, He is the Leaf's master prankster, after all. Hinata received a back pat from Naruto. His smile was silly. Yeah, she's right. I am, he said. Hinata's face flushed, and Itachi grinned at them. He said, Have you told them yet? To Kakashi. Kakashi laughed, retorting, Nah, it's too much fun watching them. Both Naruto and Hinata gazed at the two, perplexed. However, the two genin simply shrugged it off because neither of them was forthcoming about what the hell they were discussing. Kisame caught Itachi's attention. He'll be waking up soon, so we better get out of here. I'll catch up with you when I can, said the man. The two of them disappeared in a puff of smoke after he picked up Kisame's unconscious body. Well, said Naruto, that happened. Kakashi laughed. That certainly explained a lot about you, Naruto, he replied. Hinata embraced Naruto a little. I always knew there was more to that business with Itachi, she stated. If you trusted him, I knew he couldn't be bad. Naruto grinned at his sensei and teammate. He said earnestly, I'm glad you guys are okay with all this. Of course we are, Hinata grinned. It doesn't change who you are. Kakashi grinned. She's right. You're still Naruto, he replied. Naruto chuckled. You're right. Come on, let's get camp set up, he said, struggling to hide his tears. After briefly activating her Byakugan and observing that no one was nearby, Hinata took note of Naruto's tears and started assisting with camp setup. She approached Naruto steadily. When she was within speaking distance, she said, Are you okay? The sound of her voice caused Naruto to jump a little. He tried to sound casual as he replied, Yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask? Hinata inhaled to prepare herself. I saw you had tears in your eyes, so I was worried. You were using your Byakugan, huh? Asked Naruto after he paused for a moment, and Hinata nodded. Naruto was aware that she was merely monitoring their surroundings and not spying on him. I'm fine. I was just so relieved you guys weren't angry at me over this stuff with Itachi. A hand was placed on Naruto's shoulder by Hinata. She smiled slightly and said, Even if Itachi had turned evil, we wouldn't be angry at you. Naruto returned the smile. You can't judge a person by what their teacher does, after all. Naruto widened his grin and embraced Hinata. His words, You're amazing, Hinata. Hinata reddened. Hinata blushed even more when she said, And you're freaking adorable, too. After chuckling, Naruto gave Hinata a quick peck on the cheek. As he did this, his mischievous eyes were sparkling. For a brief moment, Hinata stood motionless, her face growing redder, and then she passed out. Naruto effortlessly caught her and chuckled at how cute Hinata was before stating, "Never change, Hinata."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.